You are listening to the Adapt Performance podcast, where we aim to make elite level strength and conditioning accessible to everybody. I'm your host, Jordan Webster, and let's get into the episode. Yes, guys, what is going on? Welcome back to another episode of the Adapt Performance podcast. So I've been neglecting you. Last episode was in July. So was that 6 months ago? Mate, it goes quick. It goes really, really quick. I thought I was on it. I thought I was more consistent with these, but apparently not. So let me explain myself a little bit before I get into the topic of today. Mate, things have been going well. Business has been good. It's been growing really nicely. Coaching's going well. Like we're working with some great athletes at the moment, which is sick, and ultimately that's one of the reasons that we do the podcast, right? It's an element of marketing, helping people, and eventually people decide to work with us off the back of this. So it shows that things are in a good place. But also, since getting the dog, since jiu-jitsu, since trying to just be Jordan a bit, time is crunched. And I think I really enjoy doing the podcast when they're on, right? When I'm doing them consistently and I'm in the flow of it and I've just got my mic set up, I've got the camera set up, and things don't take too much effort. Like there's low friction. I really enjoy it. So I'm gonna get into the habit of doing it more, and you might not hear from me for another 7 months. Let's see. But yeah, things have been going well. For those of you that don't know, I have a second business as well. So I work with coaches, helping them build a business that they're proud of, specifically like strength and conditioning coaches, because the gap in the market is that like there isn't really anybody that does S&C coaching, mentorships. Like you definitely have a lot more kind of personal trainer based ones, and they're definitely a little bit sleazy. So I was like, look, I've been doing it behind the scenes for a while. So I decided to make a business out of it and help people get their marketing done properly. Like give them confidence, give them clear direction that they're doing the things that they need to be doing in order to build a business that can actually, fund the lifestyle that they want. And we're not buying Bugattis, we're not buying Lamborghinis or anything like that. But the idea is that, just because some people see coaching as not a legit industry and not really a career or a profession doesn't mean that we need to, be shit in this area. Like we definitely should be looking at upskilling ourselves in terms of business, and marketing, and making sure that we're putting ourselves in the best situation in order to earn the money that we deserve. Because a lot of us, we work really hard for it. We're passionate about it. We help people. We change people's lives. So why shouldn't we? So that's my second business. It's called Build. And that's been going well as well. So I've been busy, but load of excuses for you there. Hopefully you understand that. So look, what we're going to get into is I put out a Q&A story yesterday on Instagram, and I really like doing these generally because I just get really good questions. It gives me an opportunity to interact with you guys on, things that you're struggling with at any point in time. Which is cool. And then look, the beautiful thing is if I don't have to come up with content because you're actually asking me a question, it's so much easier for me because it just feels real, instead of me just trying to pull ideas out my ass, which, sometimes I do as well. So look, what we've got then. First one is top 3 isolation exercises for somebody with minimal gym equipment because they train in a home gym. I'm in that very situation, right? So we kitted out the garage when we moved in here, and been lucky enough to get some decent kit in there. But I don't have a leg extension. I don't have my number one choice of what I would use if I was going to kind of isolate the quads. And look, sometimes you need that extra little bit of icing on the cake because a split squat is not going to do it, or a back squat isn't going to do it. You want a little bit extra load through those areas without taxing your lower back, without taxing your hips. So more volume to grow a sweet set of quads and fill out the shorts, I'm all about. So I've got 3 for you. Well, yeah, I've got 3 for you. I've got 2 really. The first one is a sissy squat. Okay, so sissy squat, if you haven't seen them, is essentially imagine coming up onto your tippy toes. Okay, you stood up straight, and what you're going to do is keep your hips extended, so keep your bum pushed through as you try and touch your knees towards the ground. So if you imagine like a classic, you're trying to limbo under a stick, right? So I want you to imagine you're trying to limbo under a stick, but touching your knees to the ground. That's the kind of thing that we're looking for. So all the way from your knees up to your head is a straight line. So that is rigid. So it's literally just knee flexion and knee extension. I would hold on to something for support, for stability standpoint, but definitely because these are quite an intense exercise as well. Don't be afraid of using your hand to give you a little bit of assistance to reduce the amount of load that's actually going through the quads, because they are horrendous. It's one of the best quad pumps you'll ever get, and probably some of the biggest muscle soreness you'll get in your quads in a long, long time. And the reason why they're so good is, one, they're a bodyweight exercise that you can get a shitload of load through for the quads. But because you're extending the hip, you are keeping one of the muscle groups in the quad is the rectus femoris. You're keeping that active. Okay, so you're using that a lot, and that doesn't get a lot of priority and a lot of other squatting or squatting movement. So I would definitely recommend like sissy squats, and you can reduce the range of motion on this. You don't need to go knees all the way down to the floor. Like, I don't really do that as often. There's a sweet spot. If I go too deep, it kills my knees. If I don't go deep enough, I just don't get anything out of the exercise. So that's a good one. Like I said, use a yoga block, use a bottle just to touch your knees to, just to keep the range consistent if you're really struggling with these, and then gradually build that up over time. So reduce the bottle size or the yoga block, just so you're increasing that range of motion. You can add weight to these. You can add a band behind your knees so that you've actually got like some load in terms of the leg extension part, where you're kind of coming back up to standing. So that there's an option. So sissy squats, I absolutely love them. I'm a big fan of them. I would definitely recommend them. And then the second one is going to be, well, it's not an isolation exercise, but it's a really good one. So got this one from our physiotherapist at Adapt, Ollie. It's because we had a few patients or athletes that were struggling with a lot of knee issues, whether it was meniscus, whether it was some ACL bits, whether it was like patellar tendinitis and those types of issues. So what it is I'll try and do my best to explain this. If you imagine you're in a bear crawl position, so you're in all fours, right? Hands under your shoulders, knees under your hips. But what you're going to do is put your feet on a flat wall, okay? And you're going to keep it with your toes at floor level, but you're just going to have your feet flat against the wall. So you're in that bear crawl position. What you're going to look to do is push your bum against the wall, okay? So you're going to go into knee flexion, so a deep squat, but it's not a deep squat like a bodyweight squat where it's up and down. It's kind of like side to side. So you're going to push your bum against the wall, and then you're going to extend your knees, keeping your knees nice and close to the floor, but not touching the floor, as you extend your knees and extend your hips, and then go back, right? So you've got this deep squat, come out the squat, boom, boom, boom. And the idea with this is, it's not isolation. You're going to get a lot of upper body action, but you're also going to get some quad load through there as well. And I think it's a really good one in a rehab case, to be honest with you, because what you're getting is a lot of intermuscular and intramuscular coordination. So a lot of things are working together at once. I really like the foot pressure element of it, and the quads take an absolute battering. So usually what we do with this is we'll get people on the wall. We'll get them to hold there for about 10 seconds, just isometrically, just to really kind of get... Isometrics are great in a lot of rehab cases because it really... You get a big rush of blood flow straight after the isometric, but then you've got like this mind muscle connection element of like, oh, I could feel that working. Then you go through your reps. So we'll usually do like, I don't know, a 10-second hold, and then we'll go through a set of 10 to 15. If you're an absolute baller, you can try and do the single leg. Just be careful, because as soon as you go single leg and take one leg away, is you're going to have like a rotational challenge. So yeah, just to recap that. Bear crawl position, but your feet are flat against the wall. You're going to push your feet into the wall to extend you forward, and then you're going to keep your feet flat as you sit into a deep squat, keeping your feet flat against the wall. So they're tough. They're really, really tough. I really like them. A little bit more of a rehab case there, but I'm a fan. And again, another one that isn't necessarily an isolation exercise is heel elevated. So whenever you can heel elevate a squat, it's usually a good thing in terms of being able to get true knee flexion, because a lot of us are limited by our ankle mobility. So if you use a weightlifting shoe, you get your heels up on a plate, something along those lines, it generally is going to mean pretty good things for you getting deep. So a heel elevated squat, and I would look to do 1.25 reps. So go to the bottom, nice and steady, come out by just a little bit, literally a quarter. So you're going to kind of stay in that middle or bottom range, go down to the bottom and then up to the top. So it really is 1.25 reps. This does amazing things for quads and glutes, to be honest with you. So again, it's not isolation, but I really like it. And if you are equipment challenged, then perfect. So I would do those. I would load it goblet style. Potentially even, you could definitely go like Zercher if you wanted to really load up and you wanted to go heavy on it. If you want to get an extra little bit of quad and really kind of make it super quaddy, you could band it as well. So like put a band behind your knees and then link it something in front. So it's going to force you to really extend the legs and extend the knees through range, because with a lot of like squatting based movements, right, is you're not always going to get quad loading or activation in the top position. It's working, right? But it's not like the top portion of a squat or the top quarter of a squat is the hardest bit for the quads, because it's biomechanically, it's in a really good position. So we need to get creative in terms of how we adjust that. And that is where a band can be, pretty useful. So yeah, there's three. Play around with those, see what you think. I really like them. I use the sissy squats a lot. I use the wall leg extensions in a lot of rehab cases, and then the heel elevated stuff. Usually, the heel elevated 1.25 usually come out when people are super low on equipment, whether they're traveling, or we've got to get home sessions in and stuff like that. You can take that 1.25 mentality to fucking everything, to be honest with you. If you're trying to really kind of collect some time in a stretch position and reduce the overall load of the exercise that you will need to have, like you do a bench press, you do a pull-ups, you do it with whatever you want, you've got the option there. Right. So there's first one. Second one is a little bit different. Yes, guys, what's going on? So before I dive on with the rest of the episode, I wanted to quickly remind you about ADAPT's online strength and conditioning service. So if you are an athlete that's got a big performance goal that really makes you excited, or you're struggling with an injury, or your training feels a little bit stale, then give us a shout. So ADAPT's mission is to make elite level strength and conditioning accessible to everybody, because we realize that there's a big gap. Like the people at the top of sport in the performance areas and stuff like that, they get access to high level coaching. But for everyone that's kind of, potentially more amateur or hobbyist, you kind of just stuck following Joe Wicks's hit, 15-minute book, right? And it's just not going to do it for you. So if you really want to kind of unpick performance and make sure that we're, diving into your goals specifically, then give us a shout and we'll make you fitter, faster, stronger, and we'll do everything right. So without further ado, let's get back into the episode. I'm just going to grab a quick drink of coffee. I'm back on my good beans. I forgot to order a new bag, which was disastrous. So I was using some old ones I had in the cupboard, but I'm not very good at dialing in my coffee machine. So I just leave it on the same settings, and you genuinely just end up with like tar or the wateriest, pissy ashtray water in the world. So it's not very good, but I'm on the good stuff again. So cool. So second question then, a little bit different, is the optimal amount of pressure to put on yourself. Struggle with this one. I think it's a really good question, and I've definitely been thinking about this a little bit more recently as well. And look, these are my thoughts, right? And there are going to be 1,000,001 different cases and scenarios and contexts where I might not agree with what I'm about to say. However, generally speaking, my thoughts on this are pressure's a good thing. You are the one in the driving seat of your own life, so if you've got goals or you're trying to do, things with your life and you want to progress, you should be putting pressure on yourself. That's it. You should be holding yourself accountable to these things. So I do think you putting pressure on yourself is a good thing. Like, I'm a fan of that. Like, I think sometimes, because you usually hear putting too much pressure on yourself being said, rather than like, I'm putting the optimal amount of pressure on myself. If it's too much, obviously that's a bad thing. And let's kind of talk through this in terms of like an inverted U. So you might see this on a graph, right? So if we imagine, it's kind of what's the Goldilocks principle. Let's go with that. That works better. A little bit. If you're not putting much pressure on yourself at all, well, you're probably not going to strive to achieve things. You're probably living pretty comfortable. And you know what? And I think in a lot of society, I think I could probably see examples of that being a bad thing, because, there are probably people that are not being very productive with their life or health and, these things that they should be doing in order to really maximize on this limited time that they've got on this earth. They're probably just kind of coasting. Okay. So not enough pressure. Let's go to the other side of it. Too much pressure. What does too much pressure look like? Not being able to live in the moment, beating yourself up horrendously over when you've underachieved or not done the things that you said you were going to do, or if something outside of your control happens and really kind of means that you cannot stick to what you're going to do. Okay, that's not good either, because we don't want you to dwell on things for years and years and years. We don't want it to fully shut you down in your ability to be able to actually progress, right? Too much pressure is a bad thing. And you know what? There's probably times when you will go through that, and that's also okay. Like, it's a continuum. And then we've got the optimal amount of pressure, right? So the optimal amount of pressure is in a place where you've set yourself some goals, you've set yourself some accountability, you've kind of got it in your head of like, right, I'm going to do this many sessions per week, or I'm going to eat this, or I'm going to save this amount of money, I'm going to study this topic because I've got a test, or nurture relationships, whatever those things are. You should be putting pressure on yourself to do those things, because they're going to require effort. They're going to require consistency. And you know what? It's probably easier that you don't. that you don't do those things. However, we know that that really doesn't lead to anything. So I do think you should be putting pressure on yourself, and this is different for every person. Like, I've definitely had times in my life where I have probably been, I can't think of a better way of saying this, but soft, right? A little bit soft because I've got so much going on, and give me half an opportunity to bail on a session, I'll do it. Or give me half an opportunity to not study for an exam, and I'll do it. And, there is a lot of other things that go into this. Like, it can't just be a one size fits all. However, pressure is a good thing. I think you should lean into it. I think you should put a lot of pressure on yourself in a lot of ways to achieve things. And I know some people find that really overwhelming and exhausting, in which case you might actually be too far on the other side. You might be doing too much. But generally speaking, I'm a fan, right? And the other side of this is the topic of, and I've said this and I've received this, be kind to yourself, okay? I agree with it, okay? Being kind to yourself when you're in situations where, you're really stressed out and things like that, I agree. However, be kind to yourself for a lot of people means don't do the thing that you said you were going to do, or go and chill out a little bit. Don't do those sessions. Don't do the stuff that you said you were going to do. And you're being kind to yourself for a lot of people means self-care. And what do they mean by self-care? They usually mean sit in front of the sofa, eat a load of food, don't train. That's short-term self-care, but that's like long-term self-destruction in my mind. I agree with being kind to yourself at certain times, but I think it needs to be taken with an element of context. So, all in all, there's my thoughts on pressure. I do think you should put pressure on yourself. All the elite people in the world will put pressure on themselves. Nobody else is going to put pressure on you in the same way as you should be doing, to be honest with you. I think it should be a self-led thing. And again, depending on your situation, that advice just might not, be true. But I genuinely believe that. I think pressure is a good thing. You should do it. Next one then, another swig of coffee. Let's get into this. So, ideal reps and sets for lifting. If it is compound lifts or accessories, training for strength and power. Okay, cool. So let me run through a little bit of a recipe guide for you then when it comes to some principles and generally how we approach power. So power, we want really high intent on pretty much every rep that we do. So we're really trying to throw the medicine ball. We're really trying to jump as high as possible or lift the weight super fast. Essentially, that's what we're trying to do, right? 100% effort is what we are required in order to increase power. It is one of those things that we need to be super cautious of, that we do not turn this into conditioning and we do not let fatigue set in, okay? We do not want fatigue. Fatigue is the enemy of speed. That's an issue. So with this then, what we need to be thinking about is picking exercises that allow you to give 100% effort and really explode through. So a squat is not a great exercise to train power because your body will naturally decelerate towards the top of the movement. They will stop. Like, a jump is better because you know that you're going to accelerate all the way through. So squatting, not a great movement for training power. Ways you could make it a better exercise for training power would be: 1, jump with it. 2, using things like bands. So bands, obviously, as you attach them to the bar, they will stretch, which means that as you get closer to the top of the rep, you will be pulling the bar down. And that is a really good thing because you need to accelerate all the way through. I still don't think it's as good as doing a jump, to be honest with you. I think in a lot of ways, like, banded exercises are okay if you don't have other options, but it definitely would not be my first choice. So you need to pick exercises that allow you to absolutely send it. So Olympic weightlifting, jumps, sprints, throws, plyos in a variety of ways, kicking, stuff like that. You want long rest. Like I said, we need to make sure that we are avoiding fatigue. You want the reps to be low, so below 5 reps, resting 3, 4, 5 minutes, depending on the type of exercise and everything. We want the sets to be between 3 and 5, right? We want to kind of keep it on the slightly higher end in order to accumulate enough volume and enough frequency and enough stimulus for the body and central nervous system, like the brain, the spinal cord, and everything to change. Frequency-wise, I think between 2 and 4 times a week is good. And I say 2 to 4 because it definitely depends on how much other stuff you're doing. If you're playing a rugby game once a week and you've got 2 hard rugby sessions, then you know what? You might actually be already being a little bit dicey when it comes to fatigue. So me putting more stuff in there might not be ideal. So strength then, generally speaking, what we're looking for is 85% and above of your 1 rep max. And we're going to lift this for between 1 and 5 reps, between 2 and 5 sets. We're going to pick exercises that allow you to recruit the most amount of motor units possible, the ones that are going to really set you up to be able to lift heavy weights, right? So super stable exercises. So nothing on a Bosu ball is going to be good for this. Ideally, if you can have 2 feet on the ground, or you can have something to hold on to. So machines are good, back squats are good, bench presses are good. Something where you're super stable and you feel good at that exercise is going to be a really important part. And generally speaking, between 2 and 4 times a week, again, like I think that's a really nice sweet spot that you can be adaptable. If you're not training much sport, then you can probably do upper end. If you're doing loads of sport, maybe lower end. Consistency for both of these things needs to be incredible. Like you need to do this for the next months and years and decades, right? Don't think in weeks, think in months and years, 100%. So there's kind of your sets and reps that you'd be looking for with that. And yeah, that's essentially it. You definitely can get strong in other rep ranges, like 6+ and up to 15s and stuff like that. Like you can, and that's not an issue. I definitely program a lot of like sets of 12 and 15 and stuff, and you can get stronger with it, but it's not the most efficient way to really improve max strength, because as you start doing more and more reps, you start to get like elements of fatigue creeping in, which means that you're probably not really going to be able to express forces as well. So yeah, that's generally speaking how I would be approaching it. So if you're looking to put together a power program, first 15, 20 minutes of your program, do it as power exercises, a couple lower body, a couple upper body, maybe a couple for the trunk. So it might be a pogo jump, it might be a medicine ball exercise, and it might be a counter movement jump and an explosive press up, right? So it could be 4 exercises that you do. And then strength-wise, you're looking at between 4 and 6 exercises, probably a good number to kind of aim for to finish off the rest of the session. And there you go. You've got a good strength and power session together there. Sweet. So we have got one more that I'm going to roll through, which is going to be give me one exercise for the upper, lower, and core that is overrated and underrated. Sick. Cool. So first one I'm going to go with is overrated for the lower body, clamshells, right? Getting a band around your knees and bashing out as many reps as you can of a clam, where you're basically just opening up your knees. And the idea is that you are trying to train the glute med or the glute to stabilize the knee and all those types of things. I just think, I just don't think it's one. I don't think it really has any overload. Okay. Is a good like first one. Like people don't overload it. You're going to use the same band and you're going to do 10 to 15 reps of it, which are probably not anywhere close to failure. And you're expecting that to change your body. It's not. Like it's genuinely not. Maybe if you came out of a coma and you want to get a quick session in, that might be a good stimulus for you, but it's probably not. So what I would be, so clams, I just think overrated. The fact that you're using a band as well, like I said before, as the band stretches, you get more load. And that's not great because the length and position of the glute, so when your knees are closest together, is receiving essentially 0. So I don't think the exercise itself of just going through abduction through the hip is doing that much for knee stability anyway. I think get you on your feet and do like a single leg staggered stance hinge with a rotation. It's one of the ones that we program for our guys quite a lot if we're really trying to work on hip strength and get length through the glute to actually change, glute strength and get some good mobility through the back of the hip capsule and get those glutes lengthened. It will be some of the worst glute DOMs you will ever have in your life. And yeah, like a staggered stance hinge with a rotation will take a clamshell's lunch money and it dominates it. So clams. Second one, upper body. Honestly, like maybe I'm just on a dodgy part of Instagram at the minute, but I've got a lot of like, in quotation, science-based lifting. And I'm sure it's like young kids that are just trying to rage bait the industry, right? Because they've got foam rollers, up on their elbows. So they've like put their arm all the way through a foam roller and then they've got a cuff around it and they're using like a machine the way it's not supposed to be used. And it's like, I am doing a Keenan flap and I'm doing basically just trying to lean into what like a small snippet of what current research says. And they're trying to take that and run with it. And, like super stable exercises or muscles only have leverage at this standpoint, therefore a lat pull down is bullshit. We should be using this super small range of motion exercise with the most amount of stability in the world. Yeah, like that whole thing for me. And if you haven't seen it, you probably just think I'm an old man shouting at the clouds. But fuck, like, I understand wanting to do things the most efficient way possible, but that's not it. That's definitely not it. So that stuff. Here's one for you. Something that I think potentially might be overrated. And look, when I say overrated, this is based on a few things because it's based on my perception of what other people place value in, right? So people might not actually put as much value in this exercise, and I'm just saying that they do, in which case the whole thing is thingy. But so something I've been thinking a lot about more recently is the landmine rotation. I use them. I like them. I'm questioning them a little bit nowadays, to be honest with you, because when we do a landmine rotation, okay, we're trying to train a rotational stimulus, and we have a few different ways we can do it. You can either do the landmine rotation where you twist your hips, and as you kind of bring the barbell down towards, the top of your thigh, you turn your hips with it, and then as you return it back to the center, you turn your hips again. So it's like, well, the rotations come through the hip there then, and in particular, you've probably just taken the pelvis and you've rotated it over that leg and then brought it back up. So it's like, it's a rotational exercise, but is it a rotational exercise for the torso? Or is it a rotation for that specific hip? There's a load of leg involvement, because you're going to use the leg to initiate movement and then bring it up to the top. So it's like, okay, is that the way that we're doing it? We're turning the hips. And I program these in two different ways. Okay, so there's one. Or you can do the other exercise where it's keeping your hips still, keeping your hips pointing forward, feet are roughly shoulder width, and you're going to turn your shoulders to that side, right? So the shoulders are going to turn. There's good hip and shoulder separation, which is generally what you'd want from a good rotational based movement. And then you bring it up to the top, right? And again, I like it. Okay, I think it's an okay exercise, but is it going to change? Is it changing what we think it's changing? Is it changing what we want it to change? I program them for like boxers and strikers and stuff like that. I just don't know if it's really giving us the amount of stimulus that we want. And I think nowadays, when I really want a strong rotational stimulus, I'm going to a cable wood chop, to be honest with you. And honestly, I'm sitting here trying to second guess my own thinking because it's a question that I have and I don't know if I truly really know where I stand on it. So potentially you can sit there and like listen to this and give me your thoughts on it. Like, do we value it? Landmines, really good integration. You're getting, it's not isolated to the core. Okay. You are getting like force transfer through the chain. So that's cool. But yeah, I just don't know. Like, take that for what it is. Underrated then. Okay, so underrated RDLs, Romanian deadlifts. Get a bar in the rack at about pocket height, lift it up, and do a heavy hinge with it. Get a load of weight on there. Get your upper back, get your lats, get your lower back, your glutes, your hamstrings incredibly strong. I'm going to be a fan of this. Like, we program this as a main exercise for most people, right? Because it's a pure hinge. I'm definitely a fan of keeping your squats squatty and keeping your hinges hingy. I don't really program deadlifting from the floor anymore, to be honest with you. Like a barbell conventional deadlift. It's too many different things going on. Like, I don't know, where do I say that there has been load attributed? Like, it's a full body movement, right? But I just think if I'm really trying to get the most out of the glutes, the hamstrings, the lower back, I want to kind of train it in a repeatable fashion. I want it to be, safe. I want there to be an eccentric component to it for the most part. So an RDL, I'm just a huge fan. Get incredibly strong at it. Go for a double bodyweight RDL. Go further. Like, we train our females the same way. Like, we've got some monstrous RDLs at that, like 120s, for females that weigh, about 60 kilo up to 70 kilo. Like, they're shifting weight and I love it. And then blokes, same thing, go double body weight. That's not a million miles away. You need to train it consistently for months and months and a couple of years. But it's on the cards for you. So yeah, I'm a big fan. Core wise, I really like a ab rollout, and I think they're so underrated because I think they're just an amazing exercise for high tension in an anti-extension fashion, right? So if we think about what we're trying to avoid when we do an ab rollout, is we don't want that lower back to arch massively. We want it to stay stacked. We want the pelvis and the hip and the rib cage to remain with a good relationship. We don't want super extension through that. An ab rollout will challenge that through range. Like the strength component when you're at the end of an ab rollout through that area is mad, because you will want to dump into hyperextension. I can remember the first time I did ab rollouts, and honestly, I was decently strong at the time, and I was like, I'll just do like 4 or 5 sets of 10, just doing a little bit of core, just get a little bit of 4 or 5 sets of 10 of ab rollouts when you haven't done them. Genuinely woke me up in the middle of the night, and I was fucked. I regretted everything about that because I couldn't move. I was fully done in. So yeah, ab rollouts. Yeah, I really like them. I just don't think there's that many exercises in the anti-extension way where you can really kind of get a good stimulus in for strength anyway. You can do a lot of like other things. You could do Electnas and Electna's another good one actually. Cool. And upper body then. So we have got, I love an overhead press. I think overhead lifting, I'm a big fan of. If you see somebody that's got a really good strict overhead press, my gosh, fuck, they're strong, right? If you can get to a bodyweight overhead press, that's monstrous. Like that to me is way more impressive than you doing a 1.5 times bodyweight bench press, because you have to commit a serious amount of time to it. There's a skill component in both of them, but you just don't see a bodyweight overhead press very often. So it's rare. Love it. I love a push press as well. I know it's kind of a lower body into an upper body exercise, good for power. It's kind of that middle ground. But yeah, I'm a big fan of that. I would say that. And I like an overhead press because I think when you go to normal benching after an overhead press, you will find that you are so strong in relation to it. Like a good overhead press means you've probably got a good bench. A good bench doesn't mean you've got a good overhead press. I think it will make your shoulders super round and big. It will make your triceps super strong. And your bench will just be unreal. So yeah, there we go. We've got a couple questions for you guys. Hopefully there was something in there of value, even if you're just listening to me waffle on about exercises and pressure and reps and sets. I'll try and keep these somewhat loose, but, educational in there as well. I've got a couple more questions, so I'm going to do another version of this kind of Q&A. So we're going to get that out there as well. So look, if you enjoy the episodes, let me know. Like, I know it feels weird just kind of message somebody after a podcast. Like it's a little bit weird like that. I get a lot of great feedback on these pods, but because you can't like it, you can't engage with it in the same way, I'm never really too sure how it goes unless people tell me, and people do. So if you could let me know like what you enjoy, what you don't enjoy, it really helps me because I can just make these better, right? So sweet. If you've got any questions for me, guys, send them over to me on Instagram and I'll be chatting to you soon. Okay, that is the end of today's episode, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed that. If you did, please do let us know and then share it with somebody who may find this episode interesting. Okay, see you next time. Cheers.